the state was looking at another. I did speak with Jim Garaffi, and he indicated that sometimes somebody may test positive on the first time, and then a second and third test come back not positive, so the state would adjust their numbers, but he would not send out a new information. He wouldn't get the new update. So, and there's a new reporting system that the state is encouraging everybody to look at, because you can also not only see the town you live in, but any town in the state of Massachusetts. Bolton's listed. It's a long spreadsheet. It lists a lot of data. But you can look down the sheet, see Bolton, see how many tests have come in the last week, last 14 days, what the positivity rate is. You can also check out local hospitals, see what their hospitalization currently is for COVID-19 patients. So I'm going to update the website tomorrow with that information. Like I said, it is going to look like we have had a decrease, but I think it's just the numbers syncing up together. So there'll be a little announcement with that. Yes, the state, as of August 1st, has a travel ban that went into place. That's all being handled by the other departments within the state. And then today they issued, Governor Baker had another press conference today. Again, about the new gathering order that went into place. I did read a little bit of it today. One of the things, it talked about if you were an open establishment already able to be open in phase 1, 2, or 3. So I read that to be if grocery stores don't have to go back to a capacity limit. Grocery stores can stay where they are. They're not subject to this indoor gathering. One thing it does say, and I would like to call this out here in the meeting, as well as my news and announcements that I sent. It says face coverings for gatherings of more than 10 people. All persons over the age of 2 must wear a face covering when they attend an indoor or outdoor gathering, where participants other than those in the same household will be in attendance. This restriction applies to all gathering venues, locations, private homes, backyards, parks, athletic fields, and parking lots, with the exception of those who cannot wear one due to a medical condition. The one thing that's been removed from that statement is where social distancing is not allowed. So I believe that takes care of the question of if you are 6 feet apart, you don't have to have a mask on. It now just states face coverings are required. That's how I interpret it. That's exactly how it reads. The other part of it's right there. So I think that's pretty clear cut now. So a reminder to everybody at all times, face coverings are to be worn.
Okay. And I understand. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that's probably the biggest updates. Obviously we have school in the town of Bolton looking to start up soon. And a lot of those questions are, will be handled with Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. The school nurse, the person who's in charge of the school nurses within all the district is working directly with them. So I feel confident that'll all be handled well. And we'll just have to keep an eye on what goes on with schools.
And do you want to discuss the mask complaints we've been getting?
We can. Bill, are we ready to speak by name or just in general?
I would leave that up to the board. We've received 3 complaints on the same establishment within 2 weeks, so that may cross the threshold of speaking of as an address. I'll leave that up to the board.
I'm going to just take a moment and stop sharing this for a second so I can check to see if anybody else is in the waiting room. They're not. So, all right, so I will defer to you, Chris Rogers, as the chair.
I would think so. Here's what I'd say: if we've had 3 visits to one establishment, I think it's time to fine. Okay.
So there were 3. There was 1 email that came in through the town website and 2 phone calls to that came into town hall, either directly to me or into the main line, and they were transferred over to me. A local establishment where there is some summer camp going on and parents are dropping their children off, not seeing masks. I sent a letter to the establishment, and their response was pretty open that they're doing what they can, and the way they have it is there's certain there, they have, employees that can't wear face masks due to health conditions, and other personal safety measures for when they're doing their work. But going to the parent I spoke with this morning, that there were even some of the visitors did not have masks on. So I sent that over to the police chief, and his response to me was, it'll be up to the Board of Health to issue a fine if they feel it's necessary. So I will write back to him, letting him know that at this time the board feels the fine is necessary.
Yeah, and I did speak to the owner operator of the establishment, and again had a similar answer that they're doing the best they can. They have signs posted that patrons shall wear masks, but again, it's really up to them to enforce that.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry. Did I bring you in a second time?
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'll mute you.
I'm gonna turn this one off.
All right. Oh, geez. Did I just kick him out? I did. Shoot. We shut a different one off. We'll just hold for him to get back in. We can continue, I guess, a little bit. So yeah, the establishment's been spoken to with with the verbal warnings. The police chief was, we'll go over there if the board feels it necessary. So I know Chris Rogers did just, I believe, indicate that the fine is necessary. Scott and Chris, do you also agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Does this establishment have a license from the Neshoba bill? For the summer camp?
I don't know that they meet the definition of a camp. That's something I think we'd have to look at.
All right, because that would
I don't think they're licensed as a camp. I don't know if they meet that definition.
I think they're calling it a camp. I don't know if this is it's probably a little different now because there are so many camps that did not open. So they're sort of doing different day activities. But yeah, I don't know what the rules would be to have an establishment run a camp without a separate license for that.
Yeah, I'd have to ask Jim about the definition and what they're doing there if it meets the definition.
all right.
Kristen, you've sent them a letter, and then you've received complaints after that letter, and you've talked to them?
So I sent the letter first thing yesterday morning on Monday. After I got an email last week. I had another phone call yesterday morning. I think I got the second phone call, and we sent the email out right away. And then I received another phone call today after I've received after I received confirmation that they received my letter about the mask complaint.
Okay. And do you think that the chief is going to issue the fine, or is he looking?
So I sent the email to the chief and just said that, if I received another call, I would pass along. But I'm also considering that that if somebody else calls, they should also be referred to the state hotline, just so it makes its way to the state. I believe that will ultimately come back down through to Neshoba and to my desk, but at least somebody at the state will be aware of it. And the chief's response back to me was, it's up to the board to issue any fine if they feel it's necessary. So the board can decide to issue the fine, and then the police chief will go over to issue that fine. So I believe everybody's in agreement with that. I will let him know that he can go ahead and do that tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's brought up again, then I will email. It's kind of hard to put it off for 2 weeks. So I'll speak with Dawn. I don't think it's anything that needs to be voted on or discussed in an open meeting. So I think we should be able to, kind of take these one at a time as they come. Bill, have you heard about the one we spoke about last week?
Which one was that?
The gas station.
I haven't heard anything lately, and I haven't
No?
seen
Okay.
any infractions. Has there been action taken?
No, I don't know if any action was taken. I can follow. Sorry, Chris. I can follow up with and ask if he's had to go back over there, but I have not heard anything at this point in time.
Yeah, the times I've been by lately, there hasn't been anyone at the gas island, so I can't say.
I did drive by once and saw a mask on.
Okay.
I guess
Maybe
I
the
can,
message has been
speak to
received.
that. So,
It's not working.
I like your idea of getting this through to the state, even though it may come back to us. Those state people are about 10 feet tall and real ugly. And maybe that can get through to this camp operation
Yeah.
that is not just the local board of health, that perhaps he can take care of with sweet talk. The state has been involved and will be further involved, making his life miserable.
okay. That's all. There's been no other. Well, there was
So-
a mask complaint at the field, but I believe that is being handled by Parks and Rec at this time, unless Chris Rogers, you have another new email.
I do not.
So, Kristen, did we decide we're issuing a fine to the camp?
Yes,
Okay.
a fine for the mask complaint. We will do a little research to see if they are licensed to have a camp, if what they're doing is any different than their normal business operation, if it's just a spin on their business operation, maybe it's okay. I don't know that answer. So Bill, I'll touch base with you tomorrow on that.
Yeah, I'll touch base with Jim. We'll take a look
Yeah.
at that. They did send us a letter that described their use, and I guess we'll take a look. I mean, they've been in operation for quite some time, and I don't think they've ever been considered a camp, because it's kind of like you pay your fee, you take your tour type of thing. So that's
Right.
not really a kind of a regimented schedule like a camp, but we can certainly look into that.
Okay.
All right.
That's, I think, all I have for that.
All right. Any other comments, concerns, complaints about mask updates? Bueller, anyone?
No, just that we're getting quite a few, in all the towns that I work in. So unfortunately, there seems to be an increase of complaints. And again, based on the governor's latest orders, it seems like things may be going backwards a little bit as far as cutting down sizes of gatherings, etc. So I think they're stressing, that masks are probably more important than ever.
Yeah. No, I'm on board. Let's drop the hammer. Okay, then we'll move on to mosquito response update. Any?
So I think, not a whole lot to report, but there has been some emails. Kristen, you've had some correspondence with Tim about some property owners requesting spray, and they've declined to do that because the properties abut conservation land and wetlands, more importantly. And then I think also, so I think there was some concern about that Kristen, you thought we should discuss.
Yeah, so the homeowner has, reached out through, again, the website, and, had stated that they requested spray. They heard back from Central Mass Mosquito that they could not have the spray due to their proximity to conservation and wetlands. And I reached, and then they also reached out to conservation agent at Town Hall, Rebecca, and Rebecca and Tim spoke. Rebecca felt that given where the front of the property was, where they wanted to be sprayed, was okay in proximity to the back of where the conservation land is labeled. And Tim's response back was that they're being very careful with Bolton right now, as there are a large number of exclusions that have been filed. So people, they're finding, it looks to be there's more and more homes that are not if they're requesting spray and it may be deemed that they would need spray, I do think that Central Mass Mosquito should be doing their surveillance first. I think that was part of the deal. But they're finding they can't fulfill these requests because it's too close to an exclusion property and or a conservation property in town. So
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so my recommendation, given, I took a look before the meeting, there's no, within the Central Mass district, there's no infected mosquitoes that have been sampled, either West Nile virus or EEE. And so given that, I would defer to Tim's judgment about, being conservative about where we spray in Bolton. And to me, that includes the athletic fields as well. I think we should encourage people to, be cautious, particularly around dusk, and to wear repellent and, proper clothing. But, the purpose of, what we're doing with Central Mass is really around protecting public health from EEE and West Nile virus.
Considering there are residents that would request again, to have an exclusion, to have their property looked at, Scott, do you recall if the town would need to have Tim maybe go down and set some traps at the fields, or do we just wait until, I don't think anybody wants to get behind it. We are approaching the season. So, at what point, our next meeting is the 25th. So at what point would we want to, do we want to be cautious about it and maybe have Central Mass go out there and start their surveillance on those fields, because it is town, it's town property. That request has to come from the town.
Yeah, I don't know, as we have a lot of information about where they're doing surveillance in Bolton. So, I can get in touch with Tim and try and get more information about that. I do think, we need to make sure that the public spaces in particular, that we have, adequate surveillance. So the schools and the athletic fields are probably the most populated. And then some of the conservation land as well.
Okay. So you'll reach out to him on that?
Yeah, I will, and I'll pass along the information to the board. Because I do think, but more than likely, we're going to start to see evidence in other towns first, surrounding towns. But nonetheless, I think we should have some insight into where the surveillance is being done. And if we have some comments for Tim, we can do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Is there a way, how do we get a tire dump on Central Mass's radar, where we had that complaint last year? Is that something we can contact him about?
Yep. I think, if you have the address and you want to send it to me tomorrow, I can reach out to him for that. He did say at the last meeting toward the summer is kind of really where they ramp up their testing. So the tires sort of take a back.
Right.
Which is fine, but we just want to get it on their radar. Yeah.
Perfect fall work for them.
Yeah, and if they need a guided tour, Chris or I'd be happy to join them.
Exactly. right down the road.
Okay.
And Jonathan as well. He was on the committee. I think that was what got him interested in the topic.
It's the same one.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Schwartz lives probably 5 houses down. So that's one we're targeting.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Well, it sounds like the mosquito thing is going well. I'm pleased with what I'm seeing so far. And again, just as an aside comment, was really pleased with the exchange between Rebecca and him, and that they're sensitive about conservation land. I think that again, it's not all about spraying; it's about all the other stuff too. So,
yeah. Chris, one thing that I was thinking about, because we do have quite a bit of no spray signs around town, if read, I think it would be worth a letter to the editor or something just indicating that, you know, people that are restricting their property from spraying are potentially putting their neighbors at risk. Anyway, I think it's worth mentioning because I think we got an overreaction to the no spraying. And I think there's a counter argument to, you know, some of that. So again, we don't currently have a problem in the area, so that's good, and hopefully it'll stay that way. And then it's a non-issue.
And to your point, I think the surveillance is key. I mean, if things start coming up, then I think you know, as a board, we need to start looking at that much closer. Absolutely. Okay, moving on. Still River Commons update. Who's got the update?
So I believe there was a request from Barb Martell, who was on the call this evening, that he would like to speak to the what is happening over there. So if you just give me 1 second, Bob, I'm going to bring up your document and information you sent me earlier.
Sure. Thanks, Krista.
Go back to all right. Well, yeah, I'm going to have to kind of move this around. So I'm going to start it at this angle if you need me to move it. And if you need to change slides, please let me know. But if it's okay with the board, Chris, you may, sorry, Bob, you may speak to the River Commons.
This is Bob Martell, 302 Glen Hill Road. Do you happen to have my email, Kristen? Because I took some specific snippets, out of the and there's just a couple things I wanted to bring to the board's attention. So you're probably aware this is a 40B development on a environmentally sensitive piece of land. It's approximately 6.5 acres, of which an acre is usable for building. And because of the 40B restrictions or lack thereof, the developer is able to put in a lot more site area than one would probably normally consider. And as an abutter, I'm mainly concerned about threats to my groundwater, especially in regards to the septic. Now, the good news is that there's a revised plan that was reviewed by the DBO last evening, and that revised plan is a smaller overall footprint than the original plan, which includes a smaller proposed septic system. But there's still something I want to bring to the attention of the board with regards to a proposed snow storage area that is over the septic tank in D-box areas. And I think if you can scroll down, Kristen, maybe. So I tried to highlight that in the next two photographs. So that one depicts, I think these are depicting the storage area. The areas historical in the previous one depicts the septic, proposed septic. I think it's a backup page, Kristen.
Okay, yeah.
Unfortunately, these weren't on a single drawing, but if you try to imagine the combination of the two here, you can see where, and it's basically the developers trying to squeeze as much housing into this development as they can, and I would suggest they're not following a best practice or standard practice by putting a snow storage area over the septic. And my concern is the compressor that represents on top of the septic system, if that does something to compromise or cause the septic system to fail, it could affect groundwater, and I'm the better with a well. So I would just like the board to request more information from the developer's engineers regarding, showing some calculations that they, mathematically can show that for a high density snowpack, that there won't be a failure to the tanks in that area. And then also surface to ground water won't be a concern from melting. If you pile 6 feet of snow on top of an area like that and it becomes packed over the winter, and then you start getting melting on top of the septic, it's not just the weight, but it's potentially the volume of water that would be over that as well. There's a third concern potentially that there's been a number of times raised by neighbors and area residents that the parking situation for this development seems a bit restricted. So, people might be tempted if they're having a large party or something like that, which again, in the COVID situation will be the case, but maybe, a year or two from now, might want to park a car right in the front there off the road, since there's shared driveways involved. So, that's yet another concern with the location. But mainly what I wanted to bring the attention of the board is the snow storage area over the septic.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Bill, do you want to speak to that, or?
Well, again, I think we'd have to, again, plans have not been submitted to us for review. If they're H20 tanks, vehicles wouldn't be a concern, but we could certainly ask planning board to ask for some type of calculation. I don't know how snow weight compares to vehicle weight, and we just want to be sure that the components can handle that weight.
Yeah, H20 is pretty mean stuff. So
yeah, it's a double pour. It's can handle vehicular loading, but again, so the question is snowbound versus vehicle. I don't know how that weight compares.
Right. Okay, so what do? We send a memo to the planning board asking the question. Is that?
I can send something to Erica tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess so. Bob, very simply, I don't think this is a concern. H20 off the top of my head, I think it's the weight requirement is 16,000 pounds, because H20 is also it's a road calculation, so it's really based on vehicles. I think I want to say it's 16,000 pounds a tire or 32,000 pounds of axle, which is a lot of weight. But at the same time, too, I don't think they run that calc assuming that the entire vehicle is entirely on top of the tank, that it's only, that you couldn't fit it on the entire piece. So that's, I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, I raised this question at the board meeting last evening, and, I asked for some specific calculations. The engineering firm was not able to produce those, but again, my concern here is, on a pound per square inch representation, this is, maybe a bigger area. The reference used in the meeting yesterday was a fire truck driving over a manhole, which is maybe a little different than a large snowpack over this area. I don't know if the entire thing is H20 either. That was just, there was something mentioned about H20 in response to my question in the email, but it's just something I would like to be considered further from the standpoint of making sure there's no failures that could affect local groundwater.
Okay. Well, we'll make the inquiry with the planning board.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. So outside of that, which I think it's an interesting exercise, do we have any other Silver River Common updates?
There's none for me. That was just I spoke with Mr. Martell last week, so I had added, had it on the agenda as a note, and he did send me the email this morning, so I was able.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything else from Erica.
And just as a general question, so have we received anything as a board recently on?
So nothing recently on this. It seems again, I will get clarification from Erica, because it seems that what plan is already in place as the town project. So the notice of the public hearing was sent, but it was really more, there was no request for comment from the board from Erica on this, as there was.
Chris, we got a hand raised in Martha Remington's box there. I think that's.
Is that Rona? Rona, is that you?
Yeah.
Yes, it's me. My question is regarding flooding. This area is so low. These houses are going to be flooded no matter what they do. And I want to know what your board is doing to make sure that they don't get flooded, because if they do, who are they going to sue? The town, your board? What happens?
That's planning board. That's planning board. That's on us.
Yeah, I don't think the Board of Health has any jurisdiction over house flooding. I think septic systems and dwellings are being proposed on the so-called island. So I don't know how that relates to floodplain elevation, but I don't know that the Board of Health would have anything to say about houses being flooded. I mean, houses do get water in basements, and we can't prevent that or stop that, as far as I know.
Well, I want you to be aware of it because it is going to happen. I can guarantee it with all the weather that's coming our way. It's already flooded many times, and it is a wet meadow that they're building in.
Right. Understood. Okay. Well, and again, unfortunately, I don't think that's in our purview to dictate. As long as the systems are built above, the specific distance above groundwater and wells, that we have no control over that.
Oh, unbelievable.
Well, we need it. Listen, the town needs a comprehensive 40B plan. We need to work on this, people. We need to be proactive, not reactive. This is not the last project like this we're going to see. I don't love them, but it's out of our hands.
The state has set this up backwards in that people start with the Board of Appeals and they expect us to come up with an answer before any of the filings have been done for the sewage systems and the rest. And the Board of Appeals is sitting there struggling with it, but without any definite information as to how it's going to work. And it'd be nice if the state were to help us get this whole process running in the right direction. And that's how we do it on everything that is not a 40B. You get your soil testing and groundwater determined, then you put in a well, then you talk about building the house.
Right. All right. Well, so unless there are any other comments about Silver River Road or the Silver River Commons, let's move on to our next agenda item, which is 356 Main Street.
No, I'm sorry. There's an update to the agenda. The Woods at Farm Road 40B project.
Okay.
That I sent over later in the day today. Erica did send that. Let me just find the email.
Kristen, is she looking for comment tonight?
I don't know if she's looking for comment tonight. The hearing for this is scheduled for August 25th. If possible, it would be very helpful to get the board to weigh in for this hearing date. So no, we don't have to comment. I mean,
well, I could ask the board a simple question. In the document that was submitted, the only Board of Health regulation that I see is being requested is the offset to wetlands. So they're asking, instead of the 100-foot required, to go to 72. The regs require a nitrogen reduction if you're less than 100. So I guess that's what the board would need to consider, is if they would recommend that nitrogen reduction treatment where they're going with a 72-foot offset. Again, Title V being 50, that's all they need to meet for a 40B, meeting straight Title V, but they're asking for that 72-foot versus the 100.
I would go along with the 72 if they do a nitrogen reduction, which is usually.
I concur, Chris.
Yeah, so we should make that recommendation because again, ZBA could waive that regulation without that requirement, but you could certainly recommend it, and then it would be up to them to make that final decision.
It's you know what, I would recommend it. I mean, Scott, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think you know, we should recommend it to conservation as well because it's in their interest to really push on that as well. I don't think we can require it because it's a 40B, but we can strongly recommend it and try and get them to do the right thing.
Okay.
So, Bill, can we touch base on this sometime either toward the end of this week or early next week?
As soon as tomorrow, if you like, because I think we need to stress on Still River. It didn't come up tonight, but again, we have to reiterate on any of these multiple units that we do want DEP input and review on the proposed well use. They should make the call as to whether or not it's private or public water supply. Even at face value, if it appears to be under the 25 people that triggers public water supply, I think it's wise to have the state look at any proposal of that type.
Okay.
Agreed.
Great. Okay. Are we through our 40B stuff?
I think so. Are there any other questions, comments? If not, we'll go to the next agenda item.
All right. 356 Main Street, continued discussion on septic flow. Do we have any new?
Nothing new. I know what they're working on. They're trying to find a similar use that's on town water or metered water to kind of use as a comparison. So we do not have a formal submission from the engineer yet. I know they're working on it.
Okay. Then we'll put that in the next agenda. Moving on to 149 West Berlin Road, well variance requests.
We haven't received anything from the owner. That seems like a hot topic, but we haven't seen, Kristen or I haven't seen anything.
Do I need to reach out to them?
No, I've spoken to the owner many times and made it pretty clear that he needed to email you and I the request and the proposed construction of the wellhead, you know, what they're proposing for the wellhead to be below grade. So, yeah, again, when things keep carrying over, I'd say we strike them and put them back on when we get new information.
Okay.
All right. Moving on next, 6 McNulty Road. Anything?
6 McNulty Road. I did email him this morning. Already filed it away. They were, I believe, anticipating to have something tomorrow. Hello, I was told it will be ready for tomorrow. That was as of my email this morning. So again,
yeah, I'd keep that on the next agenda. If it's due, you know, if an inspection has or is being done tomorrow, we should certainly have it by next meeting, I would hope.
Okay. That being said, we've worked through action discussion. I guess I would ask those who are in the meeting, is there any other action or discussion items that we have not addressed before we go into the kind of mundane building permits, inspection reports piece of our meeting?
I would just suggest one thing, that perhaps Christian and Bill could both work on this. Ask Erica if she's aware whether a town can sort of set up its own 40B procedures, as long as it's not construed as trying to block the program. And Bill, perhaps, are any other towns in the Neshoba area having done this or trying to do it?
Berlin faces a lot of this, and not thrilled with it. But again, it's a very clear process driven by the state. I'm not sure locally we can do much about that. And,
right.
You know, it goes right up to the governor in wanting to promote affordable housing across the state. I think it's very, I think the process is pretty rigid on the state side. So, I mean, Erica could maybe look into it, but I think the criteria, the protocol, the guidelines, I think they're pretty much set by the state, and that's that.
All right. I'm just, as I say, then we seem to do it sort of backwards,
Yep.
approving the concept plan and then trying to figure out what you're going to do for all the basic construction detail.
Yep.
And
Well,
whether anybody had tried to encourage the state or work out a deal where you're not blocking, just trying to do it in a more sensible manner.
Well, I think it's a
You're
catch-22.
probably right.
I think it's a catch-22 because people don't want to spend a lot of money on actual designs, etc., if the project is dead in the water. So I think they're driven to go that route. And unfortunately, what it leaves us with is, okay, this is approved. It's in the spirit of affordable housing. Here it is.
Right.
All right. I
And
see
again,
your
as
point.
long as they're meeting Title V, I don't know how successful trying to enforce local regulations would be.
No,
I've been told, if it's again, I've been told that if it's denied or if it's made not feasible, oftentimes towns get sued and oftentimes towns lose. So I mean that's just kind of a general. Yep.
I know the movement for affordable housing is very strong and rightfully so. Just trying to see if we could encourage people to do it in a little more orderly manner.
Mhm.
Forget it.
Common sense? No.
No. Come on, Chris. You've been out of the meetings for a while, but get back with the program.
Exactly. Come on now. All
Yeah,
right.
This is Bob Martell, 302 Vaughan Hill Road. I'd like to make a comment, if I may.
Sure.
So I've been following this project for a couple of years, and I've been certainly studying up on all the 40B regulations. And I mean, the rules pretty much are what they are, and a lot of them are relaxed in regards to the town regulations when it pertains to 40B. However, if there's something that affects the public health or safety, the town is allowed to weigh in on that to the extent that they can, prove their case or work out something with the developer. I don't know if you know, in this case, this project was originally denied back last year, and it was a compromise solution worked out between the lawyers for the town and the developer, which led to the proposal that I guess hasn't gotten to your desk yet. But that's forthcoming as the ZBA approved the revised plan last evening by vote, and the public hearing was closed. So you'll see that eventually. But my purpose, again, for calling in today is that if there's anything there that appears to endanger our drinking water supply specifically, and I even asked about nitrogen levels last night, and I was told that they originally had proposed nitrogen treatment, and now they're not going to offer that because of the reduction in size of the plan. So, I can't prove that what they're going to do down the road is going to affect my drinking water. It's probably hard for the town to prove that. But common sense, I think, needs to prevail to some extent here. And, to gain any traction, you got to come up with some data, relevant cases or something like that. So again, I just encourage the board to take a close look at this from the standpoint of making sure our drinking water supplies are protected.
Bob, if I could just weigh in. Obviously, a 40B is required to meet Title V, which is the statewide minimum standard for subsurface sewage disposal. So the board's hands are somewhat tied. If they're meeting the state code, the assumption is that the groundwater and abutting sensitive receptors such as wells are being protected. Otherwise, we'd be challenging the state code. So, that's kind of the position the board is put in. If they meet Title V, I'm not sure there's a lot that can be challenged.
Yep, understood.
Again, groundwater offset and horizontal offset, if they're being met, at least in the state code's eyes, those sensitive receptors, be it wetlands or wells, are being protected. And again, we can't comment on the science behind it, but that's the regulation that we're charged to enforce.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't know what the code is or isn't for, compensatory storage areas over septics and It just seemed like something that's generally not a good idea to do. And when I saw it in the plan, I thought it at least should be investigated further. Maybe there is a regulation for that. I don't know. But
Well, that's a good point because I don't think it's specifically addressed in the code, so it's certainly a question worth asking.
yeah,
Here.
I know if it were my home, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
I agree. Rona?
I think Chris looks like it's a question, yeah.
Yes, I have, I'm sure you'll think it's a silly question. If it's supposed to be a 40B and he's doing 4 units, shouldn't all 4 of them be 40B? How can he get away with 3 normal houses and only 1 40B to qualify?
If I could comment, I think, again, that's driven by the state. I think there's a percentage of the project that has to be market value to make it economically viable.
Right.
So however that breaks down by unit number, I don't know the specifics, but that's what I've seen in the past.
Yep.
We also have a bill in the state that's an addendum to the wetlands thing with building in a 40B. And it's in committee right now, but it's not going to help us right now.
No, unless it's enforceable, a regulation, a bylaw, we can't do much with it.
All right. Well, thank you. Moving on. Building permits. Any comments, concerns, or questions on building permits?
A lot of pools going in.
Yes, I see that. Yeah, I don't see anything worth really even asking the question about here. Which septic permits we have none at this time, which brings us to inspection reports. Anything of note?
So I, just a FYI on the inspection reports, I only put the cover pages in.
Which, if it's a pass, I think that's all we need to see, Kristen.
They seem to all be passes unless I missed something, Bill. I just looked at the cover page and all of these and just printed those.
The only thing is, I don't have a copy for some reason of 33 Wilder Road. Just the way things are processed in my office, sometimes the boards will get their copies before I do. So I don't have a comment on that report because I have not reviewed it. So I'd like to bump that to next agenda.
Okay. And then what's going on here? You see all this Craftsman Village stuff. Is this
They're coming up on their 3 years, some of the earlier units. So
Yep.
Lakeside Storage has been hired currently to maintain their system. So they're on a pumping schedule and Title V schedule with them. Yep.
Outstanding. I'd like to see it.
And actually, Kristen, 111 Hudson Road, if we could put that on for next. Last meeting, I realized that the copy I had only had like the odd number of pages, and I haven't gotten a full report yet. So again, we can't really comment on that. So at least those 2 should be on for next.
And all the rest of these are just passes as is?
Yeah, they look fine. They're all passes, correct?
Okay. So that being said, I think the only thing left for our meeting is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Gentlemen, have you had a chance to review these?
I have.
Okay.
I propose we approve them as written.
We'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Minutes approved. All right. Anything else? Board of Health.
I don't have anything.
Nor do I. Except hungry kids who are like dead.
So the next meeting
They're
will
old
be,
enough to cook for themselves, aren't they?
Yeah, you coddle them, you over-empower them, and yeah, they won't learn. All right, I'm sorry, Chris, the next meeting?
the 25th. I think I stated the date wrong earlier in an email. Pending any, I'm sure there'll be, Tuesday, August 25th will be the next one. So.
Okay. Well, then, that being said, I make a motion, we adjourn.
So
All right, good
moved.
night.
All right.
And Kristen, be in touch and we'll work up some comments to email to planning.
On the paper,
All right.
minutes one. You get them voted on.
Thanks, Martha. Have a good night.
Hi, guys. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
letting us sit
Good
in.
night.
No problem. Take care.
We'll see you soon.
Good night.
Good night, Chris. Take care.